Hey, everybody. This is the While We Still Can podcast. It's July 30th, 2026, and I'm Tina, and I have a very special guest today. I have Dr. Braun. She is a published author of 5 books and a workbook. She actually created the integrated bioenergetic restoration therapy process. She has more than 33 years of education in psychology, theology, nutrition, and alternative medicine, and many years of experience in addiction counseling, prayer ministry, Christian counseling, and alternative medicine. I found Dr. Braun on a podcast I was listening to, and she was just doing the most wonderful job explaining some really hard topics that we are going to get into today. Hi, Robin. How are you?
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
I know. I'm so excited that you wrote me back. I'm always still so excited when people write me back that I consider, like, oh, I'm getting written back by someone popular. But yes. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more? I tried to cover some of the big stuff, but
Sure.
tell me more.
Yeah, I'll kind of give you as quick a version as I can. When I was 21, I just become a Christian, and I was in a treatment center for an eating disorder, and I really felt God call me to become a counselor, and I had to go back to school, change my major, take another year and a half of coursework to complete a program in psychology. Went to graduate school in Atlanta, but quickly the Lord was taking me in a different direction, a more ministerial direction. So I left my master's program, but I was learning all these different modalities. And in that time period, too, I really worked through my own addiction issues using all the tools I incorporate now that I kind of accidentally fell into. Like, nobody was doing some of the stuff that I incorporate now in 1990 or 89. It was so supernaturally led because it wasn't like they were everywhere. And so that led me, fast forward, I got married. I ended up marrying a man who had a sex addiction. And he had gone through treatment, but quickly relapsed. He wasn't as healed as he claimed to be. And so the next 15 years was really a couple things. On one track, it was looking for answers for him because he was willing to go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the best counselors. We were in extremely powerful presence of God types of churches. So we had both the spiritual and the counseling. And he wasn't getting well. And, I'm kind of a bulldog, which is a nice way of saying I'm very tenacious. And then somebody would say stubborn, I say tenacious, right? And
Right.
so I was like, I got healed of an eating disorder. God's not broken. 12% recovery rate is unacceptable. We don't have the tools. The tools are missing because I don't believe God made us broken. We weren't designed broken. We weren't meant to live broken. Okay. On the flip side, I also was learning how to really, after growing up in a no talk, no feels, shut down home, good parents, just depression era parents who had no idea how to talk about feelings, was learning how to feel and process extremely hard emotions like betrayal, despair, hopelessness, rejection. So developing emotional maturity over here, my own growth, as well as pressing in for my own healing, forgiveness, like not just blame, blame, blame. I have to make this my journey. And then how is he going to get well? Well, sadly to say, the marriage did not make it, and he did not get to where he needed to be for me to stay. The Lord released me from the marriage after asking me to stay for 15 years. And I was left with, okay, angry at God, but I've still got this fruit. And then God began to really supernaturally lead me after I moved to Dallas in 2010 to this quantum physics route with the law of attraction and all these things I'd kind of thrown out as New Age. Even though I've never been New Age, I just went, no, that's New Age, that's New Age. But he kept leading this to me. I found a Bible study where it was being taught from a biblical perspective. And as he taught it, I thought, okay, these are really just Elijah House inner feeling principles. I've been certified in Elijah House twice. Like, okay, this makes sense. And that really started that journey of looking at the body, soul, and spirit from a quantum or energetic standpoint. And I feel like it helped me put those pieces in that had been missing from all of this journey of, yes, nutrition, yes, therapy, but where it came down to is I felt like that a big root of all dysfunction is our subconscious beliefs. And our subconscious is exponentially more powerful than our conscious mind, and it runs the show. Our nervous system and our subconscious are partnered with each other, and they run the show whether we want to admit it or not, if we can figure out ways to get, and trauma and emotions program the subconscious. So the Lord supernaturally led me to get trained in emotion code. Once I got trained in emotion code, I went, oh, if we can use muscle response testing, like a lie detector test, to communicate directly with the subconscious about trapped emotions, we can ask it anything. Your subconscious has like 280 plus 15 zeros bytes of information. And so, and it's information. It's kind of like people understand, well, how does that work? And I think, well, you pick up a cell phone and you hear sound. That's information. But you didn't hear it floating across the airwaves from its original source. It came in wave form. The device translated it into information form. Well, that's what our subconscious does. It translates. Yep. And the toolbox I created is designed, and I didn't create the concept. I just put other brilliant people's information together in this very comprehensive toolbox, and some of my own from my own experience and life. But the idea is that we are asking the subconscious for that information that is leading people to believe things that have them out of alignment with what God says is true and how we're designed. I'm like, we find the root causes and the remedies that bring us back into our original design, because God designed us for peace and joy, according to scripture. Brain chemistry says we were designed for peace and joy, and we're out of alignment. We're not broken, we're just out of harmony. And so if we can get back into harmony, back into design, then we are going to be the closest thing to peace and joy, which according to Romans 14:17 is the frequency of the kingdom of heaven. So that's how I got here, and it was all, so much of it was accidental, and
right.
So.
Well, that's quite the journey, and I know that you have 4 daughters. Is that what I had read?
Yes, we have 4 daughters.
I'm a family of 4 girls, just so you know. I'm the eldest daughter of 4 girls, so I have a lot of healing to do myself, But
the hardest thing as a mom is when your kids go to therapy and you realize some of the stuff they have to work through is, about you. So.
And my mom, I can tell you, still has the umbilical cord. Like, I know exactly, I can feel her all the time. She is there. We are one, and but it can go kind of negative sometimes, because I'm like, Mom, draw a circle around yourself. Keep it in there. I love you, but keep it in.
I think one of the healthiest things I've learned to do as a parent is let my children be adults and not try to parent them as an adult.
Right. And
I teach that. It's a big deal.
It is. Maybe I should send my mother your way. I love her so much. Okay. Well, that's super cool. So can you kind of walk me through the, I need to read it off the piece of paper because I'm going to chop it up. Integrated Bioenergetic Restoration Therapy process. So what all is this? You said, you brought in the spiritual component and the therapy component. Question, do you think that they purposely have kept this information in separate areas so that people would have the cognitive dissonance that there is no way that we could, like, you cannot believe this and believe this at the same time, so then people could never put the whole picture together?
I think that's observant and insightful. I think 2 things. One, that there's this idea of being an expert, and so you specialize in one thing. So people will get a passion for nutrition, a passion for chiropractic, but even a lot of chiropractors will do nutrition too, right? So IBRT basically has 6 categories. We have structural, we have emotions and beliefs, we have spiritual, we have nutritional, we have lifestyle, and we have toxins. So different ones may address some of those, but I don't think there's anything out there that addresses all 6 at once. And part of what I teach is anything can cause anything. Most of the time, physical pain is not physical. It's pain in the body, but any of those other 5 categories can cause a structural issue.
Right.
Spiritual things can cause physical pain. Emotional things can cause physical pain. Spiritual things can cause emotional issues like lifestyle, just simply if I'm not getting enough sleep, then all the
Right.
nutrition in the world isn't going to fix my lack of sleep, right? So
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
able to look at the human as a whole, which is how God designed us, I think takes us back more to design. And yet the idea that I created in this modality is that you don't have to be an expert in 6 categories because everything in the modality has a cheat sheet. And so really I can train anyone to do this. Continuing education helps if you go get some other, and even with confidence. But once people learn how to muscle response test accurately, which anybody can learn how to do, the toolbox itself takes you through the process. And it's beautiful because, if 10 people have the same symptom, it could be 10 different causes.
Right.
But an allopathic remedy or even essential oil or whatever is going to treat that symptom the same way, but the root cause can be completely different. And if we don't get to the root cause, then we just have to keep treating the symptom over and over again.
So we did not talk about this before we came on, but I work in healthcare. I'm a nurse, and so
Okay,
I work in surgery. So it's kind of a different flavor of nursing in there. It's
sure.
more dealing with doctors' egos, but I'm good at that. Um, but it's a different vibe. But yes, the healthcare system. I do feel like I help some people,
Yes.
but I do believe what you're talking about, that the healthcare system is here to treat symptoms, not prevent anything, in my opinion. And if you need to get your appendix out because it burst, you need a surgeon, you need a
A
doctor.
100%. And I absolutely think emergency medicine is so important and valuable, and you'll never hear me say that. I would say that allopathic medicine, which is created as a symptom-based remedy, is not the best solution for disease.
Yeah, yes, it's dis-ease in the body.
Yes.
Dis-ease. So that
Disease,
is
yeah.
something not harmonizing. I think that people do not break down words well enough in this current world because they are telling us what they're doing, television, all of it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
dis-ease, yes, your body is not in alignment.
It is.
And
Yeah.
um, okay, so can you walk me through kind of, because I was watching a video of yours of you working with, or explaining it to a client how this works and the muscle testing, and it made a lot of sense to me. Could you explain to the people listening kind of what
Sure.
this would be like?
Yeah, so muscle response testing has been around about 70 years. Like thousands and thousands of people all over the world practice it. It's been well established, well documented. And just, one of the things I get, well, is that's new age. And I'm like, well, how? How is it new age? It's based in the science of the body, which is electricity and and atoms, which is energy, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
meridians, they're measurable, we can find them. Our heart is what's called a toroidal field. Energy circulates in a toroidal field around our body. We call it our biofield. There's certain photography that can capture this on video. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not in action, but people will absolutely go, oh yeah, we know everything's made up of atoms. Well, atoms are energy. So muscle response testing is really just using the principles of electricity, right? So a chiropractor figures out where you're out of alignment because we're electrical beings. So if I touch your body, my electricity touches yours.
Yes, yes.
If you're out of alignment, it will short circuit your body, and your muscles will go weak, and that's how they know. Okay, I gotta adjust T5,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's been around a while. The second use really was with nutrition. Every bottle of vitamins has a frequency or an energetic signature. Your biofield knows what's good and what's not good for you. And if I
Yes.
hold
Yes, it
something in
does.
your body, or even, the information that that thing carries, your supercomputer knows, yes, I need that, no, I don't. Okay? It's very complex as to truly understand the quantum concepts, but we can put it in in language that the average person understands, but it is 100% scientific, right? And so we really can break it down. I do all kinds of little demos with electricity and all this in the body and circuitry. If you put your hand like this and I muscle test you, you're strong. If you
Yes.
flip it over, you'll go weak because there's different polarities on the front and back of your hand. So I try to do as much as possible to explain the science, because unfortunately the new age has captured the alternative medicine market, and Christians moving into this field is emerging, but we're the minority, okay? And so we have to take back what God designed, what he created. It's a fabulous tool. I use this tool to identify witchcraft, generational iniquities in the bloodline, because your DNA, all of the information from your ancestors is stored in your DNA, and your supercomputer subconscious knows that data. We just don't have conscious access to that information. So I have all kinds of, just with normal people, not necessarily occult survivors, there's so much witchcraft in our world, period. And we're oblivious to it a lot of the time until things start to go awry in our life and we go, why am I sick? Where did this come from? And some of it may be coming from witchcraft. And so being able to identify these things, I really truly believe that God gave us muscle response testing for such a time as this, because it really can separate that line between kingdom, God's kingdom, and dark kingdom, when we may not have that discernment because we've been so mind controlled to accept things. How many Christians practice Halloween because it's socially acceptable to do so, and they're making alignments and they don't realize that those are open doors. I do a lot of courts of heaven type of concepts, which is legal ground. How does the enemy have permission to afflict me in my life? And how do we take that permission away? Because God is always a loving father. Satan always wants to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yes, and I feel like we've seen the inversion of Christianity. And the thing is, so I will be upfront, I grew up Catholic. I have my problems with the church.
Sure.
I can pinpoint my first anxiety attack literally to confession, because they told me my thoughts could be bad. Like, they told me my thoughts were bad and I had no idea how you control a thought. I know you control what you do with a thought, but and some kids, I'm going to be honest, some kids need that, okay? Some do. I was not that kid.
That didn't work for you.
No, I mean, it sent me into a depression.
Yeah.
It told me I was bad. Like,
Yes.
and what happens when you're told not to think about something? It's all you think about.
That's
And
right.
so I just had no idea the concept that a thought could be bad. I knew like being bad was bad, but not the thought. And so it was just, and I was going through puberty at the time, because that's when you get your first communion or whatever. And so I definitely, went through that and always tried to believe because everyone else did. And then I went through a near death experience, and um it was very crazy. But again, after that, I really became like, oh, you think I was breaking electronics before? Now, man, I come in the room and that debit card machine ain't working. This ain't working. That
Wow.
ain't working. And like it's very weird. And people make fun of me for that, but then I go and they're like, "Oh, this was just working," and I'm like, "I told you, I know, sorry." Um, but I've had to really start learning about the biofield and all of that stuff, and so I've really been trying to cut out things in my life that mess with it. There's source. I know there's source, and that's what I would say the Christian God would be, is
Yeah.
source. And so you know it's hard to kind of find your own path with that, but I know that there are bad things and I can feel them, and I know they're wrong and bad. And so it's funny that you talk, or not funny, but it's cool that you have found a way for that scientific stuff to come into the stuff that a lot of people like know and can feel.
Right.
um
Yeah. And I
and
think
Go ahead.
If I can speak to your story too, I think one of my really biggest missions is to reintroduce the true Father God, the true Jesus, the true Holy Spirit to people, because religion has just jacked us up, right? And a lot of it's been infiltrated too by the occult to do that
Absolutely.
intentionally. And we serve the wrong God or the wrong Jesus and we just don't know it. And so a big part of my getting people back in alignment with their design is that is where you are in peace. But I believe that we have to know that something bigger than us loves us
Yes.
unconditionally, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I kind of through my near death experience, had the bad taste of religion in my life, but I had so many people rooting for me that I truly believe that the energy of that, the prayers, the vibes, all of the things, like I had so many people
Yeah,
and they came out of the woodwork and just shown me that there is goodness in the world, and
yes,
so after that it totally changed my perspective on things, and I showed up in people's lives in the way that they showed up for me, and like that
yes.
was my lesson. And but again, all of those things kind of came online as far as knowing, the discernment, the intuition,
Yes.
which I'm sure I had, but I was not in touch with. um
Well, and it's interesting because, here's this line I toe. I definitely am in the Christian community, right? So
yeah,
I want people to see that everything I do is scriptural.
right.
Um, but
Yes.
things like how intuition works and how these other things work,
Hard.
we can't fit those in a box. Okay, so where
Yep.
I kind of go back to is I do believe Jesus is the only way, but we have to understand that he's also the only God that's portrayed as love. And so it really is about loving Father, loving Jesus, and that's not what we've been taught in church or modeled. We might have been taught it, but it wasn't modeled to us. And so, I have New Age friends and I love them. And a lot of them are Jesus plus Buddha and all that. And I'm like going, I'm not sure Buddha was a good guy,
I don't
but you
know if
don't
these
know
two
that.
can go together. Right,
Right,
right.
yeah, I'm not sure. Like I
Yeah,
know because I deal with the demonic stuff, some of these Hindu gods are not ones you want to go align with. There's some bad fruit that comes from that. So I really do teach that, but I teach it from it is not his will that any should perish. Like some of the theology that's made people come away from God, like some of the Catholic theology
right.
or other ones,
Yes.
is because it's misrepresented who he really is. And I
Right.
want people to have an
Yes.
encounter. And I have another near death experience person who their psychic powers went off the chain when they came back from the near death. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain that. I just I want to help you align it so that you have peace with making sure that however you're operating is not sliming you, appearing as an angel of light, but kind of sliming you in the process. Because
Well, a
people
demon
just
could come in and hijack.
right, exactly. And that's what
Yes.
that's this idea of the legal ground is he's not always got a pitchfork and horns. And so my book, Living Like a Son, is like I'm trying to teach people a different model than what a lot of theology has taught them about who he is. And that literally is because I have walked with the Lord for 40 years. And I spent a lot of time in his presence. 100% of the time it has been loving. Overwhelming, incapacitating, can't get up off the floor, loving type of presence. Not some of the stuff that's portrayed theologically.
Right. Well, and again, you come to, if a Jesus-like figure, if this is the word of Jesus and God, and another man is writing it, you're putting someone in between that is going to insert their humanness in there,
Right,
which
there
is
could be
where the bad
mistakes
stuff
and
comes.
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. And when
yeah.
it's taught, a lot of things were contextual and they're taught as universal, and there's all kinds of things that have messed us up. And that is a big part of what I've been uncovering in
Hmm.
this deconstruction process of where I got led into one of the biggest things I do with IBRT is find your beliefs, where did they come from, and then you believe they're true, but are they really true, or you just believe they're true? And then, well, what do you want to believe? What does God say is true, right? Or what is aligned with kingdom of heaven, peace and joy truth? And so then that led to, well, what about history? How much of history have we been taught is actually true? How much of theology, I start listening to people and go, oh, before the 1800s, theologians had a totally different, teaching, but you didn't have a lot of publications. You didn't have seminaries. You didn't have people who had money to go to seminary, right? So you didn't have exposure to pre-enlightenment period where the Illuminati came in and took over our country and put their own stuff in and changed a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
And so then you start going back and you go, well, what did they believe before this happened? And you start finding this, what we call revisionist types of things.
And you realize that, oh my gosh, I just took someone's word for something.
Yes.
And how many other things did I do that with?
Yes.
And that reminds me again of being in church when I was younger, because my mom, we went to church, and again, the words versus the actions, right? Ooh. But I would be reading the words of what they were saying and then watching the actions, or, and I could, even as a 5-year-old child, I was like, this doesn't match. Like, you're acting in a way after you just read something to me that says do the exact opposite. And so, and then they think you're going to hell and they're going to heaven. And I'm like, okay, the fact that you can even tell someone that is not loving and all good, like you just said. And so it's just crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand. I was one of those for a while, right? You first become a Christian and you do kind of this what you're discipled to do, and then you start getting that this doesn't resonate, and I think yes, I think for me, what makes my journey unique in the ability to do that was, one, I wasn't raised in a Christian home. My parents were both kind of rebelling against their hellfire and brimstone childhood.
Okay.
So when I became a Christian, I was in college, so I was already learning how to think critically and do my own study. And I've just never been someone to follow a celebrity minister. Like, I just always wanted to investigate myself. There were still things I believed without challenging, but I really began to research. But it probably wasn't until I really started this process that it dawned on me that this mass mind control is all over the world. It's in the church, it's in our government, it's in our school system. And part of what I think got me there was, as I was doing this process, was and looking at Nephilim and the Illuminati, right? And so it's like, okay, what was the agenda? The agenda is the New World Order, end of times New World Order. It's in the Bible, governments say all the time, we want one world government, blah, blah, blah. It is their agenda.
Yes,
and so how do you get to your agenda? Well, you have to take over what we call the 7 mountains, and I can't quote them all, but they're entertainment, media, education, medical, right? So the Rockefellers bought all of the medical schools in the 1900s. I just did a podcast on this recently. It used to be homeopathic and naturopathic. They basically shut down the ones that were doing that by not giving them funding. And then the Flexner report, all these other things. They created all this criteria that moved to big pharma, moved everything to big pharma. Again, surgery is a whole different ballgame, but just dealing with,
the general model that we follow here.
Yes, yeah. And part of that is, let's keep people sick and dependent so that they're not thriving, they're not well. And then
they can't fight back.
Control them easier. So that's one. Education. Let's program people with the information we want them to know and make them think that this is critical thinking. Government, 2 parties, right? Most of the time, both parties are on the same team. They're just creating the illusion of disagreement, right?
Well, follow the money, and it's all coming from the same places.
It's
so
coming
that's
from
how you know.
Totally, yeah. And then theology. Let's create this mean, evil God who, is going to punish you if you're not perfect, keep you in a slavery mindset, make you more prone to turn away from him, which makes you more easily invaded by other spirits and other influences, right? So these are just, again, media, books, magazines, internet. Back during COVID, if you did anything against the shot, you got kicked off of YouTube, you got kicked off of Facebook.
Yeah.
No free speech, no real free
Yeah.
speech, right?
Well,
So,
and well, I think they're using our freedoms against us, Robin. They're using like, oh, you have freedom of speech, so we can say anything, and there's no rules on it unless the people in charge want there to be. And
right.
it's just, and then they use freedom of speech as the argument, and it's just like,
Yeah, and so, it's just all of these things are part of a bigger agenda to get us down into a narrative where we will eventually accept a one world government because we've been fed these narratives for so long and we've stopped thinking. Now, the internet's worked against them because alternate websites, places people can go find this. And, whether you like Elon Musk or you don't, like he bought Twitter and then opened it up and, what's his name got in trouble for, Mark Zuckerberg got in trouble for censoring
selling our
during
data,
election
yeah,
stuff, right? So
censoring.
there's a little more freedom than there was a few years ago. But at least in our country, right? I'm just talking about America. I don't know what
Yeah,
other
no,
countries are allowed to do. So,
right.
but I'm just saying that when you start to understand, and you can have disinformation, you can have people who are supporting
That's
something that's absurd, and then if you happen to agree with it, then you look foolish because they were trying to like put it. I mean, it's like a whole triple spy mole movie all the time.
it's called reflexive control. I actually
Okay.
had to Google that the other day, and it's an old Soviet tactic that they used to
Okay.
use. And it's like give you all the information, but only one side of the information so that you come to the conclusion on your own, but really they led you to it and then you drink. But
And I
then you
think
don't fight it because you were only given one side, which is what we're finding out. We were given one side about everything. So
sure, and confirmation bias is a human nature
feels,
thing
yeah.
that we just automatically, subconsciously, which is what I help people reprogram, look for confirmation for what we already believe to be true. So humility says, I would rather be correct than be right. And so I'm okay I've changed my opinion many times on many
So
things.
me too. So I've had
Yeah.
2 years of growth. Let me tell you, Robin. I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, oh my gosh, if more people just had this knowledge, and then they're like, do do do, but it's not their time. I know that, but
Well, also it's very threatening.
destabilizing.
Ambiguity is threatening. Paradigm shifts are hard. One of my favorite sayings is the red pill is best taken in small bites, right?
Hmm.
Because it's a lot to have a massive paradigm shift and
It
awakening
is.
overnight because we're just not wired, we're energetically and even cellularly, we're not wired to shift that fast. It's a lot of
Yes.
adaptation to a new identity if there's a rapid shift. And so everything works better if it's in little bitty bites and shifts. Um,
Well, Robin, I am just not a little bitty bite kind of girl. And so I'm like, wait, it's all a lie. Ugh. But I've been having a lot of learning all of the experiences that I think I'm a person that's here to listen to people's experiences.
yes.
Like I've always been that person that read the books and then I'm like, why am I sad after reading this? Oh, it was about the Holocaust. Like but also if those people had to live it, I feel like I should at least be able to hear their story. Obviously, I listen to myself if I can't handle it, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what opened my eyes to the survivor community that I think we should kind of talk about next. And
Yeah.
the Illuminati, we brought that up, and people are always like, "You're crazy, the Illuminati." I'm like, "No, secret societies run the world, okay?" Um, and so when I had originally saw the podcast that I found you on, you were going into the how SRA works and how these families work and how the programming works in the children or the people subjected to it.
Yeah. So if we
I
go
know it's a big
back
one.
to, centuries or whatever, and what we believe is that the Illuminati bloodlines all go back to where they have some amount of fallen angel DNA, so non-human DNA. We go back to the pre-flood. The angels came down, mated with men. The giants were a byproduct of that. The elongated skulls were a byproduct of that. It was supernatural mating with human. Okay, we can call it hybridization. If you look all over the world in Greek mythology, you have the minotaurs and the satyrs all over the world, the same pictures. So one of the things, now again, I'm going to really red pill for people who aren't there yet, but understand that the creating hybrid creatures has been going on since before the flood. And like a liger is a lion and a tiger. Like it's not hard for us to imagine that they're trying to create new species, okay? And so then we go, but what about humans versus with animals, and humans were fallen angels and things like that, or non-human beings. So you've got that. So the Illuminati, illuminated ones, they believe they are superior to humans.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want to defile their bloodline by mating with a bunch of humans. So they inbreed. Well, that didn't work out so well for the royals historically. They had a lot of defects because of doing that. And so they've had to figure out how to let just enough human, whatever. Okay. And, some DNA is not compatible with each other. Okay.
Right,
So
right.
that's where we get this rule the world, secret societies. They are the top, and they do not believe that they are very human. And so their bloodlines really matter. Now, with things like SRA, MK Ultra, they abuse their own bloodlines. Okay? Humans who aren't part of their bloodline are disposable. That's who they use for satanic rituals, ritual sacrifice, these kind of things, trafficking, all that. They are reproducing their bloodline by abusing their own children and their own descendants because they believe it makes them superior. And they are all mind controlled as well, and they have multiple personalities. So while a parent would never intuitively abuse their own child, if they switch into a part that is so programmed to believe this is the right thing to do and this is survival of the species and we just have to do this, you could say circumcision would have felt pretty brutal to an adult, but we have to do this type of thing anyway. I'm just throwing
Right. No, I am
yeah.
on that train too. But
Yeah, so anyway, just saying that this is the belief, we have to do this to create the next generation and to keep the survival of our species, which, by the way, are superior to cockroach human beings that aren't part of our bloodlines.
Right.
Okay. And because we're going to rule the world and they're going to be our slaves.
right.
Okay, so that's kind of the mindset. So they actually abuse their own. Well, there's a belief too, I talked about earlier about all the data stored in your DNA, right, and handed down. So they also want to put as much witchcraft, as much iniquity, as much darkness, as much evil in the DNA because they believe they create more power in the children's children. Ultimately, at some point, they want to create, they're creating the Antichrist in one of their projects. They're trying to breed who will eventually be the Antichrist. But so that's what a big part of it is. You've got this line because we're creating the next generation of Illuminati superior heads of the Rothschilds, heads of the Rockefellers, whoever. Okay, so you've got that stream, and then you've got the government, right? So you've got Mengele in Nazi Germany. That was 500 scientists. They're learning how to do trauma-based mind control very, very well, and they're experimenting on humans. They're also doing these other experiments that led to things like psychic powers, psychic abilities, time travel, moving through portals and wormholes, all this kind of crazy stuff that people see in the movies. And people ask me what it's like to work with survivors, and I go, well, just imagine every movie you've ever seen is true.
Yep. And
So,
you want to know something crazy? I'm going to interrupt real quick.
yeah.
I I am not a movie person because even from a young age, I'm very sensitive to them. Like,
Yes.
especially like scary, anything like that. I'm like, dude, someone had to think that up. But in the back of my mind, literally since I was a young child, I knew they were doing the things in the movies. And there are certain movies throughout my life that my brain has like really tagged. Like, for some reason, like, this is important. And they're all movies that are like showing up back now that like, oh my god, they're doing that. um and Disney, I always knew Disney was terrible. I
Good for
always
you.
knew it. And
Wow.
I remember going on vacation to Disney with my sisters, and I had a bunch of sisters, and I was the sister mom. And the whole time I was like 11, and I was like, they're gonna try to steal one of these kids. Like, I'm afraid my sisters are gonna go missing. And so I did not have any fun. But come to find out, Disney be
You're
snatching
right.
people. So,
Yeah,
but
Disney
sorry,
was not a good
continue.
guy. He was a trafficker, pedophile. Lots of stories of underground labs under Disney's
Oh,
and a lot of,
dumbs.
yeah, dumbs, yeah. So, yeah, so then you've got the MK Ultra, which is, again, the goal is to create the super soldier. So part of the agenda, and this is a dark agenda, I don't believe it's going to happen. I believe we're stopping it. So let me say
Hmm.
that before I tell you the dark agenda, because it's dark. The dark agenda is create a bunch who are then sleepers, and then you activate them and you just have mass chaos all over the world of crime and murder and you know, it's like in the movie Divergent, where they shoot him in the neck and they're like gonna go just follow orders blindly. That's a super soldier type of program.
Yep.
Okay,
Hmm.
so we're gonna do a whole bunch of those, and then we're gonna put them in positions, and when we say go, they're gonna be activated. And so a lot of what's happening now and has been happening increasingly is these super soldiers are waking up and
Yeah.
they're going, not, I'm not gonna do it, right? So the plans are being foiled.
Yep.
The veil is being lifted. God is calling people who can help these super soldiers get deprogrammed. And
Yeah.
so I believe God's got a plan so that we just don't see mass extinction at the hands of the New World Order. And that's hard. It's hard. Like some of these books, like you don't want to read. You won't sleep for weeks.
I
And
know.
so
Yeah.
you have to go, and part of what I teach of trying to stay at peace and joy is what I call the law of expansion. The law of expansion says whatever I give energy to gets bigger. It does. We're energetic beings. Whatever we focus on, we're powering it up. Okay, our intention powers things up. And so we can power up fear and darkness, or we can power up solutions. So whichever one you want to give your energy to. So I try to be intentional about, we got to find solutions. You know, EMFs are super toxic. People are getting all that all over the world.
Yeah.
How do we
Fix it.
remediate electromagnetic radiation, right?
Hmm.
Chemtrails. How do we fix the problem that they created to try to mess with us, right?
Right. Right.
And God's going to give us solutions, and I believe that. But it's hard to, you know, it's easy to have your head in the sand. It's harder to be out of the sand, but it's better if you know that you have some education on how to fix the things that they've done to try to mess
Right.
it up.
Yes. Yes. And I do want to talk about that in a minute. Because I want some practical things for people to be able to do. And I know you're super educated on that. So, can you tell me, what do you think that they're doing to us? What do you think the end goal is? Like, I know the New World Order, but what are, what, I don't know what my real question is here.
How are they getting us there?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know by making us diseased and such, but and well, it's almost like the gaslighting to take away all, to outsource your brain is what I feel like is happening.
That's a good point. You know, obviously they want to try to do some AI integration. And so there's
Right.
a couple of things. One, um, here's what I believe. I believe God created man in his image and likeness. And that pisses them off because they're not created in God's image and likeness originally. And so we give up the amazing thing God made us. We'll give that up with the right sales pitch to be enhanced. Hey, we'll put
Right.
a neural link in here and you can be smarter. We'll put, bionic arms and you can be stronger. But the minute we have technology in our body, ignorantly, they have access to control us. Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So anything you put in your body that's tech isn't necessarily safe. I'm not talking about a pacemaker or something that's controlled within the system itself. Anything that's tech that's outside controlled. So chemtrails have smart dust. They have bioweapons in them. They have aluminum, right? So we have electromagnetic radiation. We have scalar waves and dews or
Yes.
energy weapons. So what happens if you put metal in a microwave? Doesn't work out so well. So we've got
Right.
bodies full of heavy metals and we're being microwaved. That's not going to work out so well for us. And especially if any part of it is in our brain. Mold grows exponentially under EMFs. Well, one of the most epidemic things we're seeing people now is mold toxicity, but it's in their brain because they have holes in their blood-brain barrier, and now mold is a neurotoxin, just not in your lungs. It's hard to fight a good fight when you're sick. So you've
Yep.
got that avenue, and then we call it voice to skull technology, right? And you
Right.
put devices in
That's
you, the Havana
terrifying.
syndrome, you literally hear voices,
I'm
right?
terrified of that. That's
Yeah, being
something that
targeted,
actually
it's a little
I
scary.
well, you can't fight it because you can't see it. Um, I mean, you can fight it, but it's a lot of work, and most people don't even know it's happening to them.
Right, they just start hearing voices and then they think they're
How many
schizophrenic.
people are? How many people were locked up for years that were victims of
Right.
that? Do you think?
And so part of my community, we're looking for hacks to help fight these types of things. But one of the things that, one, spiritually, if you're not a bloodliner, I read something the other day, I can't prove it. I've always read that the whole 23andMe was for them
Was
to
to
look
dad?
for,
Yeah.
yeah, to find
Oh
out
yes, yeah.
Illuminati bloodlines and all that. Well, one of the nuances was they're looking for certain markers that will make you a better target to be targeted with technology. And so there's markers in the DNA. So I thought a lot of it was about, like the GATE program was about finding people with psychic gifts
Right.
that they could
Yep.
turn into super soldiers. This is more about finding markers in your DNA that either show you're an Illuminati bloodline, but also it's like, I don't know this, but I think that most of the people targeted probably have more Illuminati bloodline stuff in them because those are the markers that are accessible. And
Right.
I'm maybe wrong. Maybe they can
Right.
target anybody, but it seems like the targeted people are the ones that have more occult in their bloodline. Okay.
Yes, like have people go that either were not brought into the group because they didn't want to, and they what or out of the loop, or were a loose cannon that could
Totally.
tell on
Totally.
them.
Yeah.
And well, as far as like the targeted individual stuff goes, I mean, we saw a crap ton of that in the Jeffrey Epstein files. They admitted I mean, there were like 30 pages in there that were just like of victims saying they were targeted immediately when they were going to come forward. And how well, and I know like even the Wi-Fi in the air, like I know it's affecting my body. And
Sure.
so it's we've been taught if you can't see it or feel it, then it isn't there. And I'm like, okay, well, I can feel it, but
I and
um,
I have some of the demos I do show using muscle
yes,
testing with that, and you can buy the little devices and you can see the EMFs. But the question is it impacting us? And I go, well, we have a 20 to 40% increase in diseases that the medical community can't diagnose or tell you what's causing it.
right.
One story I have is I have a friend who has nickel in her face because when she was in her 20s, she had reconstructive surgery and they used nickel, which is not a good thing to use. and then started getting sick in her 40s. In 2022, in August of 2022, when they flipped on 5G in Dallas, she started getting radiation burns in her face. So, like, okay, we have evidence. To me, that's pretty evidentiary right there.
You know, you speak about that, and yesterday someone was just telling me a story about alpha gal, okay? And because I live in Missouri, and everyone has alpha gal now, like oh my god, it's so common. Like probably 3 in 10 people have it, um, and and a lot of kids have it, and like they find out when they can't eat Jello and stuff because everything freaking has mammal stuff in it, and
That's right, bovine.
but um oh yeah, so their family member has alpha gal, and once they got it, they couldn't figure out why they were getting sick, and it was in their jaw, and they had used suture that had um some sort of mammal something, like it's in the suture,
Right.
and that was, she was getting a red puffy rash on her chin all of a sudden after she ended up getting the alpha gal.
Now, I don't have the protocol, but I've seen with a few people that it's not that hard to remedy alpha-gal. I just don't know what the remedy is. I haven't had a client yet that has it, so I have to go research that. But I'm sure you saw all the pictures and the videos of boxes of ticks that were just
Yes.
found in people's fields, right?
Oh my god. And
I'm like, okay. Well, and we know Lyme disease, now they've actually declassified it officially that Lyme disease was created on Plum Island, in
to
the
be a
50s
bioweapon.
as a bioweapon. Yeah, yeah. I mean, none of this should ever surprise anybody anymore because, there's all these little memes about, you're welcome,
Yeah, we
like
tried to tell you.
conspiracy theory 10, whatever 0, this kind of thing. So,
Well, if you come from the position, which I'm going to be honest, I did for a long time, because it's how I am, I just
yeah.
figured everyone was functioning from a greater good standpoint. Like, I really did. I grew up in not a bloodline family. Like, my parents were amazing. Like, we talked, it was great. And so I didn't know that that was a reality for so many people. But then when I did read all the history books, but then when I started reading, when I let my mind open just enough, like I read about Operation Paperclip, and I was like, oh my God, oh, the CIA? Oh shit, oh no, oh no, oh no. And so, but it's all there. That's the thing, is that all of the information is available to you if
Well,
you
and if you
would.
just think about like how interesting it's like, okay, I'm just going to throw some out there. Um, so we see like a Manchurian Candidate movie and we go, oh my gosh, like how does that even happen? And then we go, oh yeah, like it becomes accepted, right? Or
9/11, 9/11.
9/11, like nobody would have ever thought that was an inside job. And then all of a sudden people are like, how foolish of us to think that two airplanes could take buildings down. It was like the scales get lifted and you
Yes.
realize, or that they can call the President of the United States from the moon on a landline. Like, come on. But we just didn't believe like we would get lied to like that. And that's why we just accepted the narrative.
I
And when
know.
you become a critical thinker and you go, there's no way this could have done this, right? Or just now we go, oh yeah, the CIA killed Kennedy or the Mossad
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Johnson was in on it. Well, little by little, we accepted that that was a cover up, and now nobody makes a big deal about the government killed their own president. The
It's
fact
crazy.
that we just sweep it under the rug, if enough time goes by, we just
Yeah.
accept that we were wrong because the veil got lifted, but we don't go back and go, how egregious is that? And what else is being done, right?
Yes. Or yeah, well, and that's the difference between most people and me. I'm like, "Oh wait, no, 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 no. Oh my God, it's all a lie." Okay. And so I've been trying to recalibrate that and use my discernment throughout,
Sure.
this process of, because, again, how do I go to work and do my job if nothing's real? You know what I'm saying? So like
Right.
I have to really slow it down and be present in that moment of like, okay, I know some things are real, But
And a lot of people are good. They're not all bad. Not everybody in government is evil or bought out. It may be a large percentage, but there's still people who went into this truly trying to change the world. They weren't just plants. And so we have to, I mean, Kathy O'Brien talks about like with government where they position, like let's say there's 8 levels between me and here. They'll put, a plant, an Illuminati figure every other level and have a good guy in there, or we would figure out pretty quick they're all corrupt, right? So there has to be some amount of mixture to like keep the narrative where you think there's still good people out there and they're not all 100% controlled. But what happens is the chain of command gets interrupted by the people who are following orders.
The sabotage portion.
The sabotage, yeah. And so all the red tape is, yeah.
Well, these billionaires and weirdos are not going to have any fun when we're all gone if they get their way. Like, who's going to do all their work? They're not going to have fun. They're going to be bored. So,
and then they're going to turn on each other because they have nobody else to control, right?
Right. So, or your guards. You think your guards are going to not let their family in the bunker, but then protect you? I just don't think that's going to happen unless they're a controlled asset, which could be very, I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think they don't think that. So I think I, got off topic, but you have we want to take away our humanity because, the dark forces are pissed off about that. We want to reduce population because it's easier to control fewer people. That's Bill Gates said it in his TED Talk, like we want to reduce population with vaccines. Like, hey, and then we're going to let Bill Gates tell us what to do when he's told you with vaccines.
It is weird that they tell you what they're going to do.
Yeah, and then we have, so reduce population, and then the rest of the population, if you're too sick to it takes a lot of energy to protest, it takes a lot of energy to move into any kind of position of doing anything. So if you're always battling some kind of infirmity, then that's you can control you. And then you've just got people who are easily mind controlled who are never going to question anything, and they may even be like, you conspiracy theorists are ruining the world, right?
Yeah.
Because they just
they want to go watch sports and eat their snacks.
Yeah.
Bread and
circuses, yeah. So, but even and then you look at the algorithms, right? So we now have so much evidence about the damage done by the jab, but you still have people who will go out and get the next booster because they've not seen. Their algorithm will not let them see that. Mm-hmm. And everything they completely are oblivious to any contradictory information.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's because it's going to. It's messing with their identity. I had to figure that out with the people just deconstructing in general from any belief system. It's like very painful. It's very painful.
And you lose all your friends, right? If you're a liberal and you start to decide you're wrong, and so now all your friends are going to move away, even if they don't reject you, they're going to move away. And the same is true if you're conservative and you decide you don't like Trump all of a sudden. You either keep your mouth shut or you lose your friends who are pro-Trump, right?
Which, when you describe it like that, both political parties sound like a cult at this point.
They do, 100%. But by nature, we're communal beings. So same with theology, right? If I started changing my theology and I no longer aligned with my church, and my kids were in youth group there and Sunday school, and I've been volunteering for years, and all of a sudden I believe something different and it's not compatible with what's being preached in the pulpit, I either stay feeling uncomfortable or I move to a new church and start over. But man, we have to, the rule of thumb is if you leave the church, you're not friends with me anymore. I mean, it's unfortunate. And a lot of it is just by association, by community. I'm so busy, all my free time's at the church,
right?
So all my friends are there.
Right. And I can understand that. I can understand that. Yeah. But I see it a lot with Mormonism and or Amish in general. They cut your seventh.
Yeah, you are disfellowshipped if you leave.
Yes, and that to me,
It's very cult-like. It's very cult.
yes. And I just, that doesn't go with the love and light that was taught in the book, So, well, it's coming up in about an hour, but I can't even believe it's been an hour. Um, well, do you want to tell our listeners where they can find you at? Because I know when I was looking you up, you have several different websites for depending on what people are looking for with your services.
Yeah, so being really honest, what the transition we're making is, I believe, and I have over 200 people have done IBRT training to be a practitioner, and I believe it is the most comprehensive toolbox for body, soul, and spirit out there. And anybody can learn how to do it. So a big part of what we're doing in this moment is really trying to brand IBRT to be a household name, kind of like EMDR or some of these other modalities.
Yeah.
And so I'm moving away from private practice, and I'm moving, trying to more into like influencer, thought leader, and then promoting both IBRT as a therapy and as a training modality. So we're in this transition. We're not there yet. We're working on it, but there's several things, if depending on what people are interested in. If they'd like to get some kind of therapy session in a holistic modality that very much finds roots and remedies quickly, you want to go to IBRT.net and make an appointment there you'll get paired with a practitioner. If you would like to do the training for IBRT, you can go to IBRT.net and sign up, or you can go to DR.ROBIN and sign up. Okay, both of those are viable places for training. I do see a handful of clients, and so you can, if you really want to just see me, or you feel like you have a really complex case, I do charge more than the rest of my practitioners because I'm trying to price myself out of competing with them, just being honest, and reduce my private practice because I have other projects that I'm working on. All of my books are on Dr. Robin Braun. I do have a very big passion for helping people remediate electromagnetic radiation. I have a number of products on drrobinbraun.com for that, and a lot of them I actually imprint and infuse my own products too. Like this bracelet is a EMF as well as a biofield guard and a radiation detox bracelet. So everything is frequency, and so this bracelet is imprinted with those frequencies in my biofield for that purpose. So cool. You can find products on my website, and my books are on my website. Or if you're looking to, invite me to come speak or podcast or whatever, you would go to drrobinbraun.com, and it's drrobinbraun.com. So long answer, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, no, and I will link all of those things in the show notes down below, and I found it very easily. Okay, without good. Your direction. So I know that and that's so cool. I'm so impressed that you built a program that, you did the research. She did the research for you guys, okay? She compiled all the information. You don't even have to do that part. And put something together that works, and we know it works because people use lie detector tests in a court of law. So, you believe it then, so
Well, one session will make you a believer when a complete stranger can tell you exactly what happened and when and how it impacted you just using muscle testing with a toolbox.
I was impressed by the video that I watched.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's so cool. And the fact that you're trying to teach other people how to do it. Yes, so that we can spread the word. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out. So
okay, cool.
Anything else you'd like to add before we hop off?
No, I just appreciate, and I really, because my message is we are supposed to live at peace and joy. We live in a really scary time right now. The Epstein files dropped. We've got war in the Middle East. Like it's a tough time every day. And so I really just say good self-care says I need to laugh every day. I need to practice gratitude every day. I talk about these in my book, Thrive. I need to experience connection with safe people. In my case too, in people's case, I need to know there's a being out there that actually loves me and that may have a plan, and that we're not going to just blow ourselves up and everything's going to be over. And that's scary. We've been worried about that for decades, right? So,
No, I know, I know. Well, it's like the scary people are already here doing the scary things. So I'm
yeah,
not really scared anymore. That's
yeah.
actually what freed me. I was like, "Oh wait, oh yeah, they're doing their thing. I'm going to try to save the babies and we're going to."
Right, right. And one thing I want to say too, the Epstein files dropped, and pretty quickly, Israel and bombs Iran, and that becomes the focus of attention. And then Alpha Cal comes out, and then there was something else that came out at the same time. They're trying to detract you from, in my opinion,
Absolutely.
is the most important piece, which is the crimes against humanity across the world. Epstein was
Uh
indicative of what's happening
yeah,
across the
yeah.
world, okay?
Yeah.
But it's much easier to be upset, and we should be, about genocide or murder or killing children in a war. We should be upset about that. But the fact that this all happened timing wise,
By design.
which took total attention off of the celebrities, the politicians, the names, the big people in power and money who are trying to sneak under the radar by taking the attention away. I just always want to bring it back to, if we don't stop crimes against children,
What are
our,
we doing
our
here?
whole world is doomed, and our whole world is
Yeah,
doomed from that.
that's exactly what I tell people. I'm like, "Hey, if we're not doing anything about this, what are we even doing here? There's no point. Like, if we're not protecting the most vulnerable children, like, what are we doing?"
Yeah. And whatever you can do, whether it's a prayer, it feels very helpless
It
when
does.
this person is not going to prison and this person is, and we know they did it because their names are in there, the pictures are in there, and why aren't they being
That's
arrested
it.
and going to prison? The lack of justice is hard to sit on and do
Oh, I know.
nothing. It's hard. And then we just feel, well, why bother? The world's corrupt. We can't do anything. How do you
Absolutely.
pivot to the law of expansion, to what can you do that makes a difference? I can do something in my local community. I can pray for things to change. I can speak. I can share. I can, whatever you feel drawn to, you can make a difference somehow, regardless of whether the arrests happen or not.
And that's again, we always try to dial in here on this. I feel like we bring a lot of depressing information, but also um there are so many jobs in the revolution, okay? Like, we need people watching the kids that are safe. We need food. Not everybody's going to be front line. Like, we need it all. So, find your niche. And again, it's not going to feel like it's enough, but it is. Because if everybody does something, then we all don't have to do everything.
And get healing for your own trauma, because one of the reasons
Absolutely.
people also, if you've been sexually abused, it might be too triggering for you to focus on this type of
Epstein
thing.
files.
Even if you're not
Yeah,
a
like,
necessary survivor, just a sexual abuse survivor, not just, but
absolutely.
I say, get some healing for that so that you have some bandwidth to be able to pay attention to these other things. And even if you just can donate money, that if that's all you can do, I will say, if it's okay to throw in there, I do have a
Yeah.
nonprofit, and it's ThriveHolisticHealingMinistries.com, and the money does go to prevent trafficking in a couple of orphanages in third world countries, help support, help scholarship people doing my training who work with trafficked or children, and then also help offset the cost of therapy for survivors. So.
That's so cool. I was looking around that website earlier, and everyone should go and visit that. I mean, if you really want to help this, which I have a feeling that in the future there's going to be a lot more people coming forward that this was their childhood, because they already are, and there already is a huge lack of people believing them that will, provide any sort of therapy. And they end up committing suicide a lot. It's terrible.
Or they
After
just go
after
back into
living that.
denial. They go back into denial and
Yeah.
never really fulfill their purpose of being here because they can't get the help they need. So
And they suffer. They suffer.
suffer.
And what do people that are suffering do? It flows out. Okay. So let's prevent. Let's prevent
Yes.
instead of treating symptoms. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Robin. It was so nice meeting you.
You too.
I will put all the show notes below, and we'll have to have you on again. Okay.
I loved it, and I love your heart and your passion, and we need more people who, are.
We need more people like you. So I'm so glad that we found each other. Okay.
Yes, me too. Yeah.
Well, you guys have a good night, and I'll talk to you later.